It's hard to remember a story with more conflicting claims and interpretations than this ongoing deportation case of Kilmar Abrego Garcia. I've heard he's just a Maryland dad, inexplicably swiped from the stands at a Little League game right after he had just finished painting his white picket fence and eating apple pie with his golden retriever. I've also heard he's a hardened MS-13 gang member. I've heard that he was deported to El Salvador by mistake. And I've heard that he was deported to El Salvador correctly. I've heard the Supreme Court ordered him back. And I've heard that the Supreme Court sided with Trump and he won't be coming back. And I've heard that all of this is so important that if we don't bring this guy back yesterday, you and I are going to get Kilmar'd next. We'll be cellmates in the El Salvador gulag, and we can get matching tattoos with matching infections too. So I figured I better learn exactly what's going on here. Who is this guy? Why was he deported? And what are the legal complexities of his case? Well, Kilmar Abrego Garcia is a Maryland father, as characterized by The Atlantic a few weeks ago, insofar as he is a dad who was in Maryland, but he is not a Marylander. He's a Salvadoran national who entered the country illegally sometime in or around 2012. He has a U.S. citizen wife who he married after his illegal entry. They have children who are therefore U.S. citizens by birth, and he has green card holding brothers, but Abrego Garcia himself has no lawful presence here. That's according to immigration judges, not some right-wing hot take. Abrego Garcia was detained in 2019 and ordered removed by an immigration judge for that unlawful presence. That determination was made independent of his alleged MS-13 gang membership. That deportation order was based solely on the fact that he has no legal right to be here. That question of Abrego Garcia's alleged gang membership is often treated as some kind of rumor or something recently made up to justify his deportation today. No evidence is a phrase you'll see commonly used in current reporting,
as they insist without providing evidence that Garcia is a violent gang member.
But the judge who made that deportation order believed he was an MS-13 gang member, or at least that it was sufficiently likely. Abrego Garcia requested release on bond, and the judge denied it, in part because he was believed to be a public safety threat, based on testimony of his MS-13 gang membership, his rank, his name in the gang, all of that provided to the court. And Abrego Garcia appealed that deportation order, but his appeal was dismissed. The judge in that case believing the first judge's evaluation of the evidence of his gang membership and potential danger to the public to be correct. And then, after all of that, after hanging out here illegally for 7 years and getting arrested and getting a deportation order and losing on appeal because 2 judges believed him to be an MS-13 gang member, then Abrego Garcia came up with a new legal strategy. He applied for asylum. "Oh, you have to let me stay here because the gangs back in El Salvador want to kill me," he said in this new claim, supposedly over some rivalry or extortion scheme against his mom's pupusa restaurant. Now, as an actual American dad, I had no idea what the hell a pupusa is, so I had to look it up. It's like some kind of burrito calzone or something. The Italian mafia has the pizza market cornered, and the Salvadoran gangs have the pupusa market cornered, so don't cross them. That's why Abrego Garcia had to stay, he said. Yeah, some problems with that claim. One, why didn't you make that asylum claim 7 years ago when you got here? 2, if you haven't been there for 7 years, does this gang really hold a pupusa grudge that long? 3, do they hold a grudge that long even if your mom's embattled pupusa business is no longer operating, which it wasn't? And 4, if a gang does want to kill you, is it really over who has the best Dorito Crunch Wrap in town or what sort of Crunch Wrap cut you owe them? Or is it maybe because you're a member of a rival gang, per the prior judge's assessments of the evidence? Abrego Garcia's asylum application was rejected, but he did earn something called a deportation withholding order. He still has no right to be here. He still is up for deportation, but he just can't be deported to El Salvador because of the danger of tortilla-based gang warfare, of course. That was the supposed mistake we often hear about in the reporting. The mistake is not removing Abrego Garcia generally. The mistake potentially was removing him to El Salvador specifically, even though he's Salvadoran. But if he had been deported to Timbuktu, that would have been fine. No legal question at all. It is true that in a court filing at the end of March, a federal prosecutor on the case called Abrego Garcia's deportation to El Salvador, quote, an administrative error. But that prosecutor has now been removed, in part for making that statement. Pam Bondi and company do not believe that statement is correct. There is no mistake. Salvadoran guy going to El Salvador was the intent and a legal course of action, the White House and the DOJ say. And they have a pretty good case. The legal question here, whether this deportation to El Salvador specifically is valid, depends on the current validity of that 2019 deportation withholding order. And under federal law, that withholding order can be terminated if the surrounding circumstances fundamentally change. Hat tip to Will Chamberlain for a thorough X thread detailing the legal particulars here. And a lot of those fundamentals have changed. One, the gang that is supposedly threatening Abrego Garcia is now mostly out of operation. The Salvadoran president, Nayib Bukele, has cracked down on them. Much of their leadership and membership is now in prison. Two, MS-13, the gang in which the judges previously determined that Abrego Garcia is or was a member, that gang is now declared a foreign terrorist organization as of February. Under federal law, once a group is designated a terrorist organization, its members are not eligible for most immigration benefits, including deportation withholding orders. On that basis, it is entirely plausible, if not likely, that this deportation was perfectly lawful. But regardless, beyond all of these technicalities and complexities, this is just a case of a Salvadoran guy getting sent back to El Salvador. Maryland dad mistakenly deported implies he has nothing to do with that country. No, that's where he's from. That's where he has citizenship. That's where he belongs. But yeah, I get it. Technicals matter. Process matters, of course. And that's what Abrego Garcia and his family have been appealing in the courts. Based on that 2019 deportation withholding order, a district court judge ordered the Trump administration to return Abrego Garcia by a quick deadline. The Supreme Court then intervened last week and said the White House doesn't necessarily have to bring him back on a set time frame, but they must facilitate his return, a term the court itself couldn't confidently define. So that means what? Help? Well, if you're helping someone do something, you're not really leading that activity, are you? Facilitating something and doing something directly yourself are two different things. One is directing the action. The other is just more passively supporting. Because now that a Salvadoran guy is in El Salvador, even if that deportation was handled incorrectly somehow, there's not much that Trump can actually do about it, unless he steals the guy from El Salvador. If El Salvador wants to send this guy back, well, then the Supreme Court ruling implies that Trump would have to allow him back in. You can't stop the plane from entry, for example. But the thing is, El Salvador doesn't want to send this guy back. The president wants him in prison, as he explained in the Oval Office on Monday.
Meeting with President Trump on Monday, El Salvador's president, who refused to send Abrego Garcia back.
How can I return him to the United States? Like I smuggle him into the United States, or what do I do? Of course, I'm not going to do it.
And for those arguing that Trump has some legal duty to go bust this guy out of prison, or some Democrat hero squad is going to go save him with enthusiasm they rarely have for actual Americans,
I do intend to go to El Salvador to discuss the release of this individual who is illegally detained.
You have two major legal problems, as the Supreme Court acknowledges. One, this is a foreign national in the custody of his own sovereign nation. U.S. courts have no say in how that detention is handled. And two, even if you want U.S. involvement in that dispute, it's now a matter of diplomacy, negotiation with a foreign country. And diplomatic relations with foreign countries are the constitutional domain of the executive, the president, not judges or the courts. Well, yeah, but the Salvadoran president is making all his decisions at Trump's direction. That's the criticism. Well, maybe, but so what? He runs his own country. He can do it the way Trump advises or likes, or he can do it totally in opposition to everything Trump says. The choice is his, on whatever criteria he chooses, Trump-friendly or Trump-hostile. The last gasp of the flailing and the screeching is that this episode is some kind of dangerous new legal loophole, that if people get sent back to foreign countries before that move can be evaluated in the courts, then there is no legal recourse. They get the boot, and there is no appeal. But it's not just them, the illegal immigrants. It's actually you, the American citizen, who's at risk. That's right, unless the Supreme Court justices grab the miniguns and the ammo belts and get in the helicopter to head down south to prison break this guy, we have created a de facto extra-legal policy of imprisonment in a foreign gulag for enemies of the regime. Yeah, but this guy wasn't sent to El Salvador because he's an enemy of the Trump administration. He was sent to El Salvador because he's Salvadoran. He's under their jurisdiction. If you tweet Trump sucks 1,000,000 times and you get arrested and sent to El Salvador, assuming you're an American citizen, you are still under American jurisdiction. And the State Department will still work to secure your release. But even if not, because you're an enemy of the regime, U.S. courts can still claim jurisdiction over you and secure your rights that way. And the Salvadoran president is not going to hang on to you because you're not a citizen of his country. El Salvador has jurisdiction over Salvadorans. The United States has jurisdiction over Americans. Why that distinction is so difficult to understand is charitably attributed to stupidity, actually. The legal technicals make it more confusing than it actually is. But surrounding this case is a lot more than just stupidity. It is intentionally complicating something that isn't very complicated at all, presumably for the purpose of propagandizing you into believing that your country's integrity and legitimacy itself depends on letting foreign nationals who entered this country illegally stick around as long as they want to, so long as they can show that someone back home doesn't like their mom's cooking. Yeah, well, if he liked his mom's cooking so much, presumably he would have stayed there to enjoy it or defend it. Because if that cooking actually was under threat, well, maybe a good boy son doesn't just abandon his mom in her desperate time of need. There are many different ways to try to solve that problem, but just bailing to America illegally and then saying nothing about it until you get caught is not a viable method. Unless, of course, you're intentionally distorting this case to try to make people believe that undermining their own country is a good thing. Then all of this unnecessary complication starts to make sense, because this case is no more complicated than that mother-son relationship, actually. Just like with mom, if a neighbor finds a young boy on his own behaving mischievously, that neighbor will bring that boy back home to his mom, and mom will decide what the discipline will be. We don't call that controversial. We call that going back home where you belong. And even if that neighbor was a little rough in bringing that boy back home, that neighbor can't then go into mom's house and take the boy back. That's kidnapping. And we can't tell mom how to handle the situation after the boy's return or force her to do anything about it. That is her decision to make. The pupusas started this problem, and the pupusas will sort it out. And if, like me, you still have no idea what those even are, well, good. That's the point. It's for some other country to figure out, not us. Thanks as always for listening and for supporting this channel. Always appreciate that thoughtful discussion down below, and especially over on X. That is at ML Christiansen. You're always welcome to coming out and chatting my live streams as live on Wednesday and Sunday nights. Looking forward to it. Goodbye. Hey, if you made it all the way to the end of the video, that means you probably found some value in the video. If you found some value in the video, please consider supporting my material. You can do that one time or recurring for as little as $1 a month. It not only helps me sustain, but it helps me pay the people who make my videos possible. Linked in the description for you, mattchristiansenmedia.com/support. Thanks for listening.